You know,
There.
I just wanted to comment. Our founding fathers, they believed in virtue. And they were willing to sacrifice private virtue for public virtue. Private virtue being that it's about me and what's in it for me. And a lot of times when you have just private virtue, you remain self-focused. And you don't get something great done when you're self-focused. We have an opportunity, I believe, with SB1, and I have read some of the bill, and I really like the bill, and I know there's room for improvement in the bill. But I love our panelists tonight and their representation of the facts. I am a proud member of the Northeast PA Tea Party, and I am just thrilled at tonight's turnout, and when we really get to understand what public virtue is, and we're willing to sacrifice our private virtue for public virtue, it doesn't matter where it starts. Because we got to think about where we're going, where we're heading, and get that big picture in mind.
First, Anna and Anastasia, I want to thank both of you for taking all the time out of your personal lives to be in Harrisburg time and time again. That means a lot to us back home here. Second of all, just to get with, one of the things I look at SB1 is again, as Adam said, it's further in the future. And this is changing the culture of America. And where do we need to change it? Where the cancer is growing the worst, and that's in our inner cities. If we can change the culture there, and it will just spread throughout the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've sat here and listened to, everything going on, and I might not be popular for saying this, but I feel that it's another Band-Aid approach to the situation, and it's not getting to the root of the problem. We're here to support a bill that wants to throw more money at a situation. And we've been doing that for years through various programs. And I feel that the root of the problem is either the curriculum or the teachers are not teaching our students well enough to achieve later in life. We need to get to the root of the problem and find out why our students are failing and becoming third-rate in the world as far as achievements. So, unless you can convince me that this is really going to solve the problem, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one thing, it doesn't spend more money, it actually spends less money. And what we're trying to do is break a monopoly and inject competition. Now, this isn't going to be utopia. Conservatives don't believe in utopia. We do believe that we can make incremental reforms that make the system better. And it's a part of a broader education package I know Senator Piccola is working on. Again, we talked about ending mandatory dues for union dues. Cutting off their funding by maybe 70% would be a good step. We talk about paying good teachers more. How about the ability to fire bad teachers? Fire a bad teacher. Then teachers, they go on strike. There's an effort to deal with teacher strike in Pennsylvania. That's an effort you should be behind. So Senate Bill 1 is sort of the tip of the spear in terms of where we are now. But if we can get momentum on this, I guarantee you we can get momentum on everything else, and that's going to put us in a much better footing going forward.
And there is a lot of talk in the Capitol there is a lot of talk in the Capitol about education reform, so an SB1 being just one part. Look at it as a fist. SB1 is one finger of the fist. So you'd have other bills. They're talking about introducing other bills as part of this education reform umbrella, like, you know, merit pay, economic furlough, different things that are going to go along with SB1. But you've got to start somewhere. So, and right now, this is what we have on the floor of the Senate, and it needs to go for a vote.
There you go.
It's all about direction. Are we going further into communism, or are we injecting capitalism and free enterprise and competition? And I'm all for a change of direction.
Yeah, under this voucher program, if you know you have a student that's in a failing school, and you know that 10 miles up the road, there's a good school. Now, if you don't have the transportation, the means to transport your student into that better school, will they pay for it? How's that work?
The way it works is there's a 10-mile radius. If you choose a school outside of that 10-mile radius, then the parent is responsible for paying for transportation.
So the rural area schools really, you know, 10 miles is not around in Pennsylvania. You still have to go to that school.
That's how it's done right now.
Right.
The busing has the 10-mile radius. They're keeping it the same. So, you know, if my child is in Philadelphia in a failing school and I choose a school in Bucks County, which is 30 miles away, then I'm going to have to pay for transportation myself. It's not going to be offered by the government.
Okay. No, I was just wondering how that worked.
My children went to a private Christian school, and I was wondering, concern was there about vouchers, that if public money comes in, that you know, the state or whatever can also dictate some of what is taught. I mean, it happens in colleges now too. And you mentioned before that the schools might not accept the voucher money. Is that you're sitting as a capitalist thinking, why wouldn't they accept it? And then you think the strings are attached. Is
Well,
that right?
no. The money goes to the parent. The money doesn't go directly from the government to the schools. So there are no
they-
strings attached.
Okay.
Okay. The government cannot dictate how a private school is going to be run. That's going to continue. That's going to remain the same.
Okay, conversely then, what's to stop a radical group, let me keep everything clean here, from starting a school and getting public money coming to it through the parents? Probably nothing.
I know Dave wants to jump in on that part, but on the first question, I mean, I believe that you should be free to a business or a school should be relatively free to choose how to manage their school, and if they can take on more students, they should. I mean, that's a dynamic market. So that, to me, that's important. The thing that I look at is who are some of the biggest supporters of SB1, private, Christian, Jewish schools. We've seen all them at the Capitol coming and saying, we want these students. We want an opportunity to teach these students. We want the voucher. We want the money. So if there was something really to fear about this, and trust me, those schools and the people that lobby for them have looked into this, if there was something that they were really concerned about, they feel very strongly that that's not a real threat to them. People have used that argument, but when you talk to the schools themselves, I mean, we've been working with how many schools across the state that are private schools that are supportive of this, but I know Dave wanted to get on that other question.
Okay, I also wanted to ask one more thing. When you were saying before about the money not coming out of local school district and saying that their expenses will be less, I really don't get that, because the administrators, the big money, the teachers, they're all going to make the same thing whether you give them 8 kids or 13 kids or 20 kids. So I don't understand how, now they look at it as taking some of their money that was
Away,
coming in
right.
the district and taking it away from them. I don't know how you say that they have less expenses, because the big expenses are still.
Yeah, I'll take 3 of your points right there. First off, the first point I would say is that private schools, actually, the reason they want this is because parents can't afford the tuition. So they're closing their doors everywhere. In New York, they're closing them like crazy. In Maryland, where I'm from, they're closing them like crazy. People can't afford $8, $9, $10,000 a year. So to that point, when you give these kids a vouchers, more kids going to their schools, they're going to be accepting them quickly like this. Second point would be, you mentioned about a radical school starting. There's 3 types of schools. There's your fully funded public education school, which is what all our tax dollars go to. Then there's charter schools, which is basically they go and apply for a charter. And this is a whole other issue, but those charter processes are very biased and they're hard to get. So they fill out a binder this big, and then the government says, okay, you get a 5-year charter. You have to show improvement, and then we'll give it to you for another 5 years. So the chances some radical lefty group, let's just say, is going to start a group that they teach Karl Marx in, it's probably not going to be getting the ability to do that. The charter is not going to get them. and when you, that's true. Now, some public schools. And then your last point, when you brought up, how does those schools, if you look over the board and if you look at the research, and I would recommend everybody in this room to watch the movie The Cartel and Waiting for Superman. They did a great job talking about how school vouchers work. In fact, if you guys want a copy, my card's up at the front. We'll send you a copy for free. Just call me. I'll ship it to your house with a few things to read alongside of it. But they talk about that, and what they say is that statistically, when school choice is brought in, either Milwaukee or Cleveland or Florida, wherever it's been brought in, Detroit, these students that are in there, the leftover, have less, the teachers are forced to compete, A, and B, they're less classroom sizes, and that's the big debate with this whole thing, 30 kids, and now you have 20 kids in a class, and the teacher has more time. Also, with the less money, yes, all the money goes to administration costs. If you look at most average salaries, teachers are making about $50,000 a year. Administrators are making $400,000 a year. Of course, there's an administration cost, but less kids in a classroom, more individual time. I know my wife, a second grade teacher, if she had 20 kids and then 5 of them left, she'd be the happiest girl in the world because she has 15 kids. So it's just shown statistically that how it works. And I'm not doing it justice, but in The Cartel, they do go into it up and down of how this actually works in when you take the kids out and those follow the vouchers. Who's next?